Welcome back to the Minnesota Fringe Festival 20th Anniversary Webcast interview series. And today we are talking about some of the Dean Seal era behind the scenes. And I think the easiest way for us to kick this off is let's start off just going down the line and stating your name and how you first heard about or became aware of the Minnesota Fringe Festival.
Well, I'm Jon Skaalen, and I probably attended the first Fringe Festival, hearing about it through the media, and started enjoying it each year, seeing the out-of-towners especially, and then the local folks I'd never heard of. And then I got into the accessibility part of the Fringe, so that's where I started.
I'm Bill Hanzlik, and I had a friend that was in the Fringe in 99 or 2000.
What
and,
friend?
That part doesn't make any difference, but because you'll understand when I tell you this story.
Yeah.
Some of those early Fringes had performances during the week, and a particular time slot that I went to see him was a Thursday at 2 in the afternoon time slot. So you can imagine that was like the horrible time slot, and it was a terrific performance, but I had brought someone from my office, and there were 3 of us in the audience.
Yeah.
And it became apparent to me about 3/4 of the way through the performance that the third person was the performer's mother. So I thought, wow, it was really great, but it needs support, and it intrigued me to get more involved.
Yeah.
I'm Kate Kirscht. I'd known Dean Seal for a few years, and when he came to lead Fringe Festival, he kind of pulled me in. He would throw out opportunity, and there was a good chance that I would say yes to anything that he proposed. So I ended up doing sidewalk chalk art, co-running a spoken word venue, and other things around the Fringe for many years.
Hi, I'm Susan Cleveland, and gosh, I've been trying to remember all day when I first heard about the Fringe, because I don't remember not knowing it. I think it was somewhere around my first summer when I moved to the Twin Cities, and had heard about this performance festival, was intrigued, but I was also working in the arts at the time and couldn't make it that first year. But once I started getting involved in producing shows, the following summer then produced my first show for the Fringe Festival, and they kind of hooked me in. I said, well, maybe I can help out too. I don't have anything else going on. I'm only producing one show, and the rest is history.
That 3-person audience thing is very familiar. I opened my very first Fringe show in 2004 to 3 people.
The thing about it was really a good show,
yeah.
And I felt bad that there needs to be more people, that we need to have more awareness of it, and that's what really helped me get involved on that.
So your first connection was as an audience member.
Yes.
So how did you get? Because you've been a long-standing board member.
Well, I had met Dean Seal, and it was right around the time where the Fringe was transitioning from something that could be run in a person's head on a part-time basis to this wild animal where the tail was shaking the animal, and Dean was smart enough to say, this needs a board, and this needs more, decision making from on high as opposed to just steering something. And so he invited me onto the board, and I accepted.
That's a great line from an email Dean sent me when I was talking about this, but where he was describing a Mac Plus and a phone in an unfinished basement.
Yes.
I hope to move out of that unfinished basement. So I like to say I literally and figuratively helped move the Fringe out of Dean's basement.
Oh, that's familiar too, because I always thought that one of the reasons I got invited on was because I had a pickup truck.
There's probably truth to that.
Let me swing over to you, because you were a chalk artist for the Fringe for many years, and I have my own because my first Fringe Festival was in 2004, and
Yeah.
it was my first time. I'd done lots of theater stuff. It was my first time producing something, and walking up to a venue and seeing that someone had made a chalk drawing about my show.
Locasena.
Yes,
Yes.
that was legitimacy to me. That meant so much.
Dean had been following what the European fringes had been doing, and there's a lot of sidewalk chalk art in Europe. I don't know how they get it done in England when it rains all the time. I still don't know about that Beaver fellow who does the incredible murals. It rains all the time. How do you keep it? So let's say it rains here.
Speaking
As you
of,
can hear it's gone. It's gone. I've tried hairspray, I've tried fixative. So I would get out there and do, maybe redo the artwork for a show if it has a few more performances. If it only had 1 or 2 performances, then I would do a promo for a different show. I think I averaged about 8 to 18 pieces of artwork a year, depending on how much it rained.
We had an interaction a few weeks ago for when we were picking up our stuff for our Fringe shows, where I pointed out to you, I think of the people at this table, I may actually have the longest relationship with you, because that was back when you were reviewing shows for the MACT festival, and I was doing like teenage community theater stuff. But I wanted to ask you about that.
Did we give you a good review?
You did, actually. You were very positive.
You're at the table, aren't you?
But I wondered if you could talk, because you're someone who, I mean, just Googling your name, you've worked with a lot of different theater organizations over the years, like the MACT Fest and like the Fringe Festival. And how is the Fringe a unique organization?
Well, compared to community theater, in community theater, it's like the Fringe in that anybody can participate.
Right.
It's unlike the Fringe, or I'll sort of turn that around. The Fringe is unlike community theater in that you can't do a lot of things in community theater that you can in the Fringe.
Yeah.
Anything pretty much is open, and that is so freeing. It's an incredible freeing experience. Plus, in community theater, nobody makes any money. In the Fringe, everybody either loses money or makes a little bit of money. So, it's fun that way. But, both have international organizations.
Yeah.
Both have exciting ways of doing things coming from other cultures. And the Fringe, it's just, in 10 days, you get to see so much of it. Some of the ones, and we all have our favorites, but I remember one single English singer had the weirdest show at the Southern, I think it was, and I loved it. I bought her CD. Another guy did. We all have wonderful favorites, and
And it's that same mission, that same openness that made fundraising really interesting and really challenging all at once. Because some people either got it or they didn't, and they either loved that inclusiveness and that openness and you can do anything, or they didn't.
Or it scared him.
Yeah. I actually had a pretty awkward meeting with the foundation once, and they were, Dean was saying, you guys need to be funding us. We're doing really amazing art here, and I'm not going to, say who. They said, we don't do non-jury, and that was pretty much it. And I kind of knew that, and there was the discussion continued, but ultimately it scared him, and that is just the nature of the beast. I think that's what makes it fun and exciting, though. And it made it an easy sell for me in many regards, because either they were going to get it or they weren't. But here it is. Here is what is happening. Here is this unbridled art and this unbridled theater that's just going at it. Yes, some of the shows are terrible. We're not going to hide that, but there's some really, really amazing things happening, and people who then are poised to go on and do other things. And do you want to be a part of that?
Well, let me ask, because that's another thing that came up in my notes, that in the year 2000, you developed the theme concept
Oh, geez.
for the Fringe. What is that? What does that mean?
Well, I think that was the Place of Fire, Theater on a Stick. I mean, we had for a few years there, we had little themes.
No.
Like, for a number of years after that, they had the little guy who was kind of running around. Yes, this little guy here.
Yeah.
Kind of the predecessor to that was themes for the festival, because you gave me a lapel pin. I still have it. I remember you giving it to me. Of it's the little jester on a stick, because I've done theater on a stick. I still have it on a jacket and wear it. Oh yeah. It was just trying to do marketing. We were just trying to take our marketing to the next level.
And let me ask you too, because another thing that your name showed up in attachment to was the spoken word. Fringe.
That was another thing. Dean threw the opportunity up like a volleyball. And it's like, okay. And I brought Lauren Neely in on it because I think I was in a show, so was he. We could get enough together so that we could staff the show. It was free or donation at the Dunn Brothers in Loring Park. It was I think on weekends we even had 2 shows, but there was like a show every single day of Fringe, which tended to compete with the 1,000 other things that were going on in Loring Park at that time. But for people who got frozen out of the show that they wanted to go to and had to wait around for an hour or so, they could still enjoy some Fringe, or they were broke. They could still enjoy some aspect of Fringe, and that involves some chalk art, putting whoever we happen to book out on the sidewalk.
I'm gonna pitch this to you because your first involvement was as audience, but it's for the table too. So my first involvement was at the Fringe Festival in 2004. If I walk off camera, step into a time machine, come out 15 years ago and walk into a Fringe venue, what is different? How is the world different? How is the community different? How are the
Air conditioned. I use air conditioned now.
There were some the early years where you were selecting venues 6 or 8 months prior to August. No one thought to ask that question, and you ended up with a sweltering venue. And so I would say how it's changed is every single year we figured out 1 or 2 things to do better, and say, oh well, we're not going to make that mistake again. And I think there's a greater buzz now. The attendance is up, so I think that there is a greater massive activity that happens. You had lots of shows with 2 or 3 or 4 people in the early years, and you encounter that now, but not as much. The front of house is way more organized. When you think of how many people get moved in and out of Rarick on an hourly basis, and how that's something that has always amazed me, is that the volunteers, normally a volunteer where you say, all right, you work an hour, you get a ticket. It's like, well, where do I stand, for the next 50 minutes to get my ticket? And our volunteers aren't like that. They really take ownership in the Fringe. They say, no, the line goes here, and a lot of that's Allegra's work and training, but a lot of it is because the volunteers really take ownership in it. A neat statistic that I don't know is really, and I don't know the exact statistic, but I'll get you the feel of it. For a volunteer shift, they get a ticket to go to a show. Something like half of them never get used, meaning that volunteers are volunteering because they like it and it's fun, and not for payment or because they believe in the Fringe.
I think on that note, thank you all so much for joining us, and I think that's it for this particular webcast. So stay tuned, and I believe the next one up we'll be talking to some of the performers who worked on stage during the Dean Seal years. Thank you.